Hey guys, and welcome back to the New Tennis Era podcast. My name's Anthony Hirsch, and we have just had the first big final between Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner in Rome, and it was a fantastic match. Close first set where Sinner had 2 set points and Alcaraz saved them both. He is now 11-2 in big finals. He has won all of the big clay court titles that are currently on tour annually. And Alcaraz proves himself yet again, up to 7-4 in the head-to-head. Alcaraz has now won 4 straight matches against Yannick. Yannick is 41-2 in his last 43 matches. The 2 losses were both to Carlos Alcaraz on 2 different surfaces, hard court and on clay court. So Alcaraz truly proving himself to be a problem for Yannick. I want to dive into key points of the match, among other things. Thank you guys for joining in. Don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to like the video as well if you haven't yet. So in terms of the match itself, Alcaraz served so well. He was hitting his spots early. He played very clutch. He said after the match, this is the overall smartest strategic match that he has played. I think it showed. He was playing solid, patient in the rallies, building out the points. Some of the things that worked for him really well, which I'll get into when I go over key points in the match too, but he was doing really well being patient and then going, maybe making Sinner go a little bit off balance on his backhand side. And then he was doing so well to go backhand down the line. He was hitting the drop shot super well as well. He was covering the net super well. We saw that on the championship point as well, but the drop shot was as good as ever. And a big part of the reason why, first of all, his touch is just incredible. But second of all, the way that he sets up the points and builds out the points to prepare himself to hit the drop shot are just perfect. It really was a strategic masterclass for Alcaraz, and he had this killer look in his eye the whole match. It was clutch. I thought the first set, both guys were clutch throughout. It was really a tug of war set, 7-5 tiebreaker to really to seal it at the end of the day. But I thought you couldn't have really expected more. Sinner should be happy going into Roland Garros by the fact that he's made the final this week. I remember earlier in the week, I was thinking Francisco Cerundolo might be a tough problem and really have a possibility to upset Sinner, with Sinner not having been on the tour for a few months. I was thinking maybe Sinner would be happy even just make it 3rd round, 4th round. Obviously, I thought he had potential to go deeper, but it was very up in the air how he would play here, especially on what could be argued is his worst surface. I think it will prove to be his worst surface by a pretty decent margin, in my opinion. And I think that it was very up in the air. Sinner played a fantastic week of tennis. Obviously, the Casper Ruud match is not just a standout from this week, it's a standout in his career so far, and maybe his career in general. That it's an incredible victory, especially under the circumstances. But to lose against Alcaraz playing at this high of a level in his first couple of weeks back, is a big deal for Sinner. And yeah, Alcaraz's drop shot looking as good as ever. If we go to just stats and numbers, Alcaraz 73% first serve points won, 64% first serves in. Fantastic numbers. Alcaraz 2 for 2 on break points saved. Sinner was 1 for 3. Alcaraz playing the big points better altogether. And the other thing I would say is that Alcaraz, the footwork and the movement, the sliding ability that he has on clay, he is just he's able to take Yannick's pace, Yannick's big shots through the court, that have a lot on them, and he's really able to take them and still get them back at a lot of pace because his movement on the surface, his defense, his footwork is just so phenomenal to watch. It's phenomenal to see the way he moves around the court, and I feel like he plays looser against Yannick because he knows he needs to. These two are well above the pack at this point. I feel like Carlos plays loose, so he locks in against Yannick. He goes for backhand down the lines. He goes for these crazy shots. But above anything, I mean, he goes for these crazy shots because he feels like he's able to against Yannick. But also he loosens up and he plays those crazy shots, but he also plays patiently, right? There needs to be that balance. He plays patiently. So those are some things I would say about Carlos that he did really, really well in the match. But Sinner played at a high level in the first set too. The only thing I would say is that I want to look at the 30-40 set point. The thing that I came away with watching this point more than anything is that Carlos played so clutch and so well and really went for it. And we see yet again, fortune favors the bold. I mean, these are two consecutive matches now where Alcaraz puts up a clutch masterclass against Yannick. Two consecutive sets. Beijing. You have Beijing, and then you have this first set here, saving 2 set points. Carlos has had such a phenomenal statistical record to this point in his career in clutch moments, in big matches, that it's really phenomenal. I talked about the 11-2 record that he has, but also against his main rival in this head-to-head, he is now 7-4 in tiebreakers in their head-to-head. He has been the better clutch player. I mean, all across the board. I think this match is very comparable to another match they played at Indian Wells, where he also saved a set point at 6-5, and then he won the tiebreaker after saving a couple set points, and then won the second set very straightforwardly. It was actually the exact same scoreline. I think the tiebreaker score is like off by 1 point. The score is exactly the same in general with the 7-6-6-1. But the matches are pretty similar. I mean, Alcaraz and Sinner had not played each other from the U.S. Open going into Indian Wells, about the same amount of time that they haven't played since Beijing, and a lot of similar circumstances with Alcaraz playing very clutch in U.S. Open, playing clutch in Beijing, and then similar scoreline here. So I just want to point that out because I thought the similarities were kind of uncanny, to be honest. It really reminded me of that match. Sinner, too many unforced errors, not enough winners, but it really, I mean, this has a lot to do with Alcaraz. Like, it's just Alcaraz played fantastic. Sinner played well too. I'm not going to be like Sinner played awful, so many unforced errors. It's like, no, I mean, you get away from the match. If you say that Alcaraz played, if you say that Sinner played a poor level, I should say, then you're wrong. I mean, straight up wrong. Even the second set, I mean, yeah, Alcaraz maybe almost bageled Sinner to a degree. It was up 5-0, but the level that he had in the set, I mean, it's some of the best tennis that we've seen since the peak of the big three. It's some of the best tennis that probably anyone has ever played. Alcaraz is playing at a level that is so supreme that, don't get it twisted, Alcaraz was playing at a phenomenal level. It's not Sinner that was playing poorly. Alcaraz was, I mean, unforced errors are just another way of saying forced errors to a degree if you're playing against a good enough opponent. I mean, unforced errors are just desperation shots against greatness, you know? Unforced errors are forced by greatness. So that's often how it is. Obviously, if you're watching a match in juniors and a guy just can't stop missing the ball for no reason, that's unforced error. But at the pro level, against a guy like Alcaraz, it's a little bit more complex, a little bit more nuanced, and a little bit more misleading than that. That's a misleading way to think about it, for sure. And then the other thing that I would mention, the last stat before I want to move on to these key points here, is that in the first set, they were almost even in the 0-4 shot rallies. Second set, Alcaraz was absolutely winning the 0-4 shot rallies way more. But the biggest difference of them all, set one, the only stat for rallies that Sinner led, he was leading the 9+ shot rallies, 9-8. So very even, but Sinner was leading 9-8. I would mention this even if they were tied, or even if Alcaraz was leading 8-7. But here's the reason why. Sinner led the 9+ shot rallies 9-8 in the first set. Second set, Alcaraz led those same rallies 7-1. 7-1 he led, compared to 9-8 in the first set. Obviously, shorter set. That's why we saw less of those. But Alcaraz, outlasting Yannick 100%. And he was so good on every front strategically in the second set. He was doing so well to make to make Yannick uncomfortable with these kind of lobs up high to the Yannick backhand and making him move backwards and then hitting so many backhand down the lines. Carlos doesn't mind when he hits a backhand down the line for Yannick to get the forehand and then attack cross court to the open space, because that's a running forehand for Carlos. And Carlos moves so efficiently and effectively, swiftly sliding across the clay. He's able to get that in no time. And he just has so many options, but that pattern in particular is such a good one. And him hitting those backhands up high to push Yannick back, even if Yannick cuts a few of them off, like for the most part, it's a very successful pattern for Alcaraz. And even if Yannick cuts him off, that's the pattern that equals success for him to hit either come to net, hit a drop shot, and just the back and cross court. I mean, at times Yannick definitely was winning those rallies, as often he would, but Carlos was taking the chances and pulling it down the line, and it was working really, really well. Because, like I said, if Yannick goes the other way, goes forehand cross, Carlos is very happy to get there to his forehand. So it's not bad for Carlos, and it opens up a lot of other doors as well when he makes Yannick uncomfortable behind the baseline. So it's those were a lot of patterns start working for him, and we saw a lot of them in the first set too. But in the second set, he was just playing his strategy out of perfection, a level of perfection, really. It was perfect. To be quite frank, it was a perfect second set for Carlos. And yeah, so 7-1. I guess perfect would have been if those rallies he won 7 and Yannick won 0. But listen, Carlos isn't going to win every single point against Yannick. This is as close to perfection as he could expect from himself. And like I said, Yannick will come away happy too, because they both played really well. I think it just is exciting for the future. I'm going to dive into the key points in the match, but it's just exciting for the future of this rivalry, because every time we see them, it is such an intense, I mean, albeit stressful watch, to see them go just back to back with such massive explosive shots both ways. But they are such a challenge for each other in such a unique way at the moment, because nobody else is at their level whatsoever, and they have nothing else to prove, both of them really, at the moment, which makes it exciting to feel like new era started. We're in it. They've played the first big final that they've played. They both showed up and played fantastic tennis, and there's really nothing else to prove. They're both number 1 and 2 in the world. I think many would expect that that's going to be the case for the foreseeable future, or maybe even the unforeseeable future. 15 years from now, or who knows what will happen, they still could be number 1 and 2. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we see, a few Grand Slam finals between the two over the next couple years. And I think with that, I think most of us would be happy. Just to see them play a Wimbledon final would be exciting. So hopefully we get to see that, but it was good to see them their first big final, and they both showed up to the moment, which was great. So talking about key points in the match, set number 1, talking about some key points. So I'm going to get to 6-5. That was really the first moment that I felt was really absolutely pivotal to mention here. Well, first of all, we started with like a lot of clutch plays. Some clutch serving here too. Also, Alcaraz was serving well. He was hitting his spots, which was, like I said, absolutely crucial for Carlos. I mean, even if he wasn't hitting a lot of aces, he was hitting his spots, and that was really facilitating him to be able to really step in and hit great +1s. And that was really what defined the start of this match for both players. Just clutch plays, not necessarily down break point, but at 30 all. Whether it was Carlos with a good serve out wide and then hitting a forehand to go behind Yannick, or Yannick hitting this high backhand shot at 3-3 30 all. It was just like both guys were so locked in. It was an important match for both, and they were very clutch. It was an absolute tug of war at the start, but and they were not really allowing either guy to get many break points. We saw that more in the second set, more break points the second set, particularly for Carlos, break points against Yannick. which he was converting on most of them. But 6-5 was the first really crucial moment in this one. Sinner Alcaraz matches. We've gotten a lot of, I mean, they've played 11 matches. We already have just a lot of exciting moments in these matches, whether it's kind of reminds me of Federer and Nadal matches early on in the day, like early in the day. It would always be an event because there'd always be some crazy moment. And this 6-5 was the crazy moment. It was Carlos saving 2 set points, and there should have been a third one, which I will get to as well. Good play from Sinner at 6-5. He was moving around the ball. He was hitting good depth. He was hitting tricky shots. And regular, for Carlos, regular kind of difficult balls, tricky balls, Alcaraz was making throughout the course of the match. He was just slightly missing, but he was going for the right shot. So it was nothing egregious, but it was errors off of his racket, although these were errors that Sinner was causing by playing quite well, I will say. But yeah, Alcaraz hits on at 30-40. Sorry, at 15-40, Alcaraz hits good first serve. Sinner doesn't get it back. Pretty regulation stuff, not too much to mention. Alcaraz was serving clutch, playing clutch. 30-40 is the big moment because Sinner gets a second serve return. Sinner gets a second serve return, and he has the highest percentage, even before he was world number one, he had the highest percentage winning second serve return points. Such a good returner. Sinner, an absolute elite returner. Both of them are, which is the biggest reason why their matches, I said, it's kind of a funny thing to say, but are so stressful and so intense. But on this 30-40 point, Alcaraz hits a fantastic second serve. It couldn't have been any better. A lot of pace on it, big kick. And he hits it to the center backhand, perfectly placed. It's also, I mean, it's just literally perfect. Like it was like high percentage because it was well within the box, but it was good, well enough placed that it just bounced up and made it difficult for Sinner. And the biggest thing about the serve was that it had a lot of pace on it. So it just shows that Alcaraz, I mean, first of all, if he didn't have his serve at this kind of a level today, it would have been a different match. He needs the serve to be working. So it'll be interesting, if they come up against each other at Roland Garros and Alcaraz serve is not at the level it was today, which could happen. What will happen then? But Alcaraz served fantastic today, and he hits 3 deep ground strokes to the center backhand. And Sinner misses his fourth ground stroke with the backhand well wide. And this is the biggest point of the match, in my opinion. I mean, I guess it objectively is because it was the set point for Sinner, who didn't take a set in the match. And if he wins this point, the match quite literally becomes completely different. Things I would say about Sinner is that he could have gone for a bigger kind of, let's see. Well, Alcaraz, he could have gone for a bigger down the line on the first backhand that he hit because Sinner left that side open. I actually kind of think on purpose, tempting Alcaraz to hit it down the line. Alcaraz plays it smart and goes cross court. And it just shows how smart and patient Alcaraz was hitting because I promise you, there are times in opponents where Alcaraz would go for that down the line shot, but it's lower percentage. Alcaraz playing smart and just decides quickly he's going to go for the backhand cross and hits a very good, pacey, heavy, deep backhand cross court, which was great. On Sinner's side of the court, I feel like he could have taken more chances early on. I feel like probably Sinner wanted to take more. I felt like this point was played as if Sinner was the one who was down set point because he was playing it so tentatively. I still am of the belief that when you're down, you should play bold. When you're up, you should play bold. You should take it, especially when you're playing against somebody the caliber of Alcaraz. There are other people who say that your opponent's feeling the pressure at the moment. I think obviously it's a balance. It's not an easy answer, and it depends on the situation. Those things are obvious, but in general, like I think you have to take it. I think you don't just want to play totally tentatively. Because this is kind of the thing that will happen. And Alcaraz plays more bold, but also patient at the same time. And I feel like maybe Sinner expected Alcaraz to give him a chance where he would be able to step in, and Alcaraz just playing deep, every ball well in front of the service line, playing every ball deep. And yeah, Alcaraz just playing kind of unexpectedly good shots for the moment. Like I said, almost being more bold than Yannick. And then Yannick at the end just kind of forces it, probably what he wanted to do earlier in the point, but then he just kind of forces it at the end. He maybe could have hit a better return of serve because the return he hit kind of put Alcaraz in a advantageous position. I mean, it was a very good serve. Like I said, it was really tough to deal with. I don't think Yannick expected the pace on the serve, but he would have wished probably he had a better return. Also, with the second backhand that he had, he definitely could have stepped in a little bit more. He was backing up behind the baseline, and backing up behind the baseline on the backhand, that's something that Sinner was struggling with throughout the match, and that they struggled with their pass encounters. I think that's the one that's hard for Yannick, because even if Yannick cuts it off and kind of leans into the ball, hits a heavy shot, like against other opponents, that works fine. But against Carlos, like I said, it was just so good at preparing early and having his feet set and defending so well and moving so well, especially on the surface. It's really hard for Yannick to, even if he makes this difficult shot where he gets on top of it and hits it on the rise and leans into the ball, it's really hard for him to hit that to a good enough shot where Carlos doesn't just completely kind of ram it back. And it's a tough shot for Yannick to deal with in general. The high shot to Yannick's backhand. But that's what he does. And then Yannick doesn't try to step in, even though it worked a couple times in the match, even though it's hard. But he maybe could have stepped in. But either way, I came away from this point feeling more like it was a clutch play from Alcaraz, although I did feel like Yannick, he could have done more, I think, even though it is a little bit nitpicking. But Carlos clutch in this match, no doubt about it. Third set point, Sinner should have had. He didn't have a third set point. This is the set point he should have had. And he has a great look at a forehand winner. And honestly, this is a forehand winner that would be like a hot shot for any other player. But this is, for Sinner, this is a regulation forehand winner that he's constantly hitting. And he would usually make it by, I think the hugeness of the moment, the gravity of the moment, also probably like being away from the match court for a little bit at the moment, and also maybe like, who knows the reason, but like Carlos's speed, feeling like he has to hit it to the line, whatever reason from these that it was, or whatever mix of reasons, he misses it just wide, and Yannick is clearly just kicking himself for it. Really trying to force it and hit a winner. And yeah, Yannick not really dictating. Carlos smart, kind of patient, building out the points with great depth. Like I said, that backhand pattern that was really working for him before he'd go backhand down the line, but or go for a drop shot or whatever else. But I feel like this forehand that Yannick hit, Carlos was hitting pretty aggressive shots. Yannick made a really good move to run around his backhand and hit this forehand. But he almost was trying to hit it for a winner right off the rise. That's why I said it would have been a hot shot for any other player. But Yannick usually would have had it, especially because the court was pretty wide open. But yeah, Carlos doing a really good job at being patient, but doing it with great depth. And that makes it hard for Yannick to have more time to hit a forehand like this, where he would have gotten it in. Here he has to force it a little bit, and that's part of why he missed it. Even though, like I said, I think he should have made it. He should have made the shot. In the tiebreaker, first point of the set, I think people who are just watching this point at face value, the opening point, Yannick misses a volley into the net. In the second set, he made an egregious volley into the net to give away the second break to Carlos. Here, he misses a volley into the net, but really it's Carlos's just ridiculous movement and sliding on the clay yet again. And that makes Yannick miss the volley into the net. And Yannick goes 1 for 7 at the net in this match. And it is partly Sinner here. He will want to improve his net play against Carlos in the future, but it's like, I'd say it's like 10% to do with Sinner at the net and 90% to do with Carlos, because Carlos is the last guy you want to see on the other side of the net, maybe except for like either like Roger or Rafa. Maybe even well, all of the big four are so hard to play against when you're at the net, which is crazy because at the net you should have a very high chance of winning the point. Against the big four, it's almost impossible. But he's pretty much the last guy you want to see on the other side of the net when you're at the net. And yeah, another reason why his drop shot is such a good play, because it forces you to come into the net. But Carlos is so good at passing shots, at lobbing. It's just crazy. And then talking one more time about this kind of backhand to backhand pattern, at 6-4 and 6-5, we see very similar points, I think. And Carlos loses a backhand to backhand cross court exchange at 6-4. He's unable to get a chance to pull it down the line before Yannick just rips it to a cross court to the Carlos backhand, and his backhand kind of just gives in and hits it wide. Yannick playing at a very, very high level, gets it to 6-5. But then at 6-5, Carlos is able to get a backhand down the line after a backhand to backhand and come to net. And he really just kind of extends into it, kind of moving forward into the backhand and hits it down the line. Such a good play for him today, and having just such a good net coverage, and that wins him the set. But the set is as close as it could have come. The match lived up to the expectations because the first set was fantastic, and set number 2 was impressive just because Carlos played out of his mind. To be honest, I don't really want to talk about many key points in the match in the second set. Really, the key points were in the first set. But I do want to point out that Yannick started off the set strong. He went to love 30 in the second set, and it kind of looked like we were going to have a match here. But I think for me, the key point of the second set was at 15-30 in the first game. Carlos hits the absolutely most ridiculous backhand cross court, just killing Yannick's confidence, as it's a good pattern for center if they're going just backhand to backhand cross court. And Yannick is waiting for the backhand down the line, but Carlos hits the most egregious, like unbelievable winner cross court, like splat on the sideline, and just kind of kills Yannick's confidence. And that is Carlos continued throughout the set with these drop shots, with backhand down the lines, and just really good patterns for him. The drop shot was as good as I've seen Carlos play it. I remember like the Wimbledon finals against Novak. He had some fantastic drop shots, but I think today was one of the best and most impressive strategic and drop shot performances that I've seen from Carlos, without a shadow of a doubt. I think for sure. And yeah, I think that those are some of the big things that I want to talk about. The last thing is that 0-1 break point in the second set, Carlos pulled 2 backhands down the lines. And this is the same kind of pattern. Yannick goes back cross court with the forehand, and Carlos has the big forehand there. And he hits a big cross court, and that's the set. So he gets a big forehand there. After Yannick gets the forehand. So that's the exact pattern I was talking about. And yeah, that pattern sealed the match for Carlos. So that was my analysis of the Rome final. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thank you for everybody who joined into the live stream as well. We got 40K viewers. Stick around, join into more new Tennis Era podcasts and more tennis content coming like always, and live streams throughout Roland Garros. Thank you guys for joining in. Don't forget to like the video again if you can. It would be a help. And thank you guys. I'll see you guys at the next one.